Chapter 85, The Guests. After traveling in secret, after running in fear, our friends were safe at last. But their problems weren't over yet. Although Roz had a brand new body, she had the same old mind. And most humans simply weren't ready for an emotional, curious, wild robot. There was only one place where she could be her true self, and it was still far, far away. Dr. Malavo, you have already been so kind to me and my son, said the robot. But I must ask you for one last favor. The woman sat back in her chair. Could you please take us home in your airship? The woman laughed. Well, of course I will. How else would you get to an island in the middle of the ocean? Time and time again, Roz had dreamed of flying back to her island in an airship, but she had never thought it would actually happen until now. It's no trouble, the woman went on. We can have you home in a few hours, but I insist that you and Bright Bill stay a while, here in my apartment. You both deserve some peace and comfort, and I'd love the company. There was no arguing with Dr. Malavo, and our friends agreed to stay a while. The robot butler took care of everything and everyone in the apartment, and that included guests. Roz felt funny accepting help from a robot, but Bright Bill happily soaked up the attention. The butler fed him fantastic salads made from exotic leafy plants. The butler placed a little pool in the living room so he could swim whenever he liked. The butler built a cozy bed that was just the right size and shape for the young goose. Bright Bill had never been so comfortable. Dr. Malavo divided her time between her guests and her work. She would sit around chatting with Roz and Bright Bill and then suddenly head down to the factory with some urgent task. She had to design new robots. She had to supervise the makers and the Ricos and had to manage all of Tech Lab Industries. Even at her old age, Dr. Malavo was still consumed by a passion for robots. If you love your job, it never feels like work, she'd say, smiling and strolling out the door. When the host was working, the guests had the apartment to themselves. Roz spent hours browsing the bookshelves. She read about art and science and the history of robotics. Bright Bill waddled from room to room and explored every corner of the sprawling apartment. But their favorite activity was to stand by the windows, gaze across the city, and survey the incredible sights. I can see the bridge where Strutter tracked me down, said Bright Bill. And that's the building where I first met Greybeak. And there's the roof where you fell. Look, far in the distance, another spaceship is taking off, said Roz. It could be flying to the space station, or the moon, or beyond. I think that skyscraper is actually a greenhouse, said Bright Bill. I flew past it and saw nothing but plants inside. Roz and Bright Bill enjoyed their time in Dr. Malavo's apartment, but they missed their friends and the wilderness and the island. After a few days, the guests were growing restless. They were ready to go home. This chapter has a lot of theme in it. Think about the theme. What is the message that the author is trying to give us here? She had a really good quote there, the maker did. I really like that quote there. If you find something that you're really, really passionate about, you'll never feel like you're going to work. That's why I love teaching. And when we talk about career day, I know you're only 10, 11, maybe 12, but some of you really have some great interests. And if you find something that you're super, super passionate about, you'll never work a day in your life and you'll love it. So think about some of these things as we finish the book. What was the theme? Chapter 86, The Flight. Sitting on the pavement, glinting in the sun, was a sleek, white airship. For so long, those white ships had filled the robot with dread. Now one was about to solve all her problems. Kind of ironic, isn't it? The door hummed open, and Dr. Malavo, Roz, and Bright Bill climbed aboard. Once they were comfortable, the woman spoke to the airship. Take us to the island where Rosin Unit 7134 was found. The engines fired up and the ship lifted off. It floated high into the air, turned to the north, and started cruising above the city. The three of them quietly watched the buildings and streets pass below. The city seemed to go on forever. But as they flew faster and farther, it slowly gave way to the towns and countryside. They crossed the hard edge of the coastline, and then there was only the ocean and the sky and the airship. The ocean was deep. However, scattered throughout the dark depths was shallow areas, sandbars, reefs, islands just under the waves. In places, bizarre rock formations stuck up from the shallows. Or were they the ruins of old buildings? The mysterious shapes faded behind the airship and were replaced by more dark depths. The ship flew on and the hours flew by. Gradually, fluffy clouds came into view on the edge of the horizon. Beneath the clouds was a faint smudge of green. The island. It grew closer and bigger, and then Roz was gazing out at all the places she'd missed. The rocky shore, the mountain and the waterfall, the forest and the meadows and the ponds. Air blasted toward the ground as the ship lowered itself into a greasy clearing. It gently touched down. The engines powered off. Chapter 87, The Homecoming. The airship's door hummed open, and our robot stepped outside. Everything was still and silent, but Roz knew hidden animals were watching, and she greeted them with a mighty roar. Animals of the island, I have returned. I may look different, but I promise you, I am your old friend, Roz. Her words boomed across the island, but the only response was her own voice echoing back. The wild robot needed to be wilder, so she reached down and started smearing handfuls of mud across her body. Then she pressed clumps of weeds and flowers into her muddy coating until she looked more like her old wild self. Brightbill fluttered out from the airship and perched on Roz's shoulder. He shook his tail feathers and squawked, "It's true! This robot is my mother! Come see for yourselves!" Silence. And then bushes began to rustle. Faces began poking out from the trees. Animals began scurrying and trotting and flying into the meadow. At first, they moved cautiously, confused as to how this new robot could be their old friend. But they saw her wild appearance and they heard her wild voice, and news began spreading across the island. Roz was back. A crowd of friendly creatures gathered around our robot. There was Brightbill's flock and the beaver and deer families and Fink the fox and Swooper the owl. Bears came lumbering down from the hills, and fish jumped up from the ponds, and vultures circled above. Even the nocturnal creatures crawled out from their burrows into daylight to join the celebration. Oh, how good it feels to return from a long journey and find your friends and family waiting for you. But readers, sometimes we return to find that things aren't exactly as we left them. As you know, the wilderness can be a harsh place, and while Roz was away, it had claimed its share of her friends. The robot saw the raccoons, Lumpkin and Bumpkin, and not Rumpkin, nor did she see Broadfoot the moose or Dig Down the groundhog. Other creatures were missing as well, and so, like many of our homecomings, this one was bittersweet. Chit Chat the squirrel came bounding through the grass, chattering on and on as usual. "I always knew you'd come back to us, Roz, but I never imagined you'd gain so much weight, although I guess I've gained a little weight myself. Anyway, you'll have to tell me all about your adventures when you get a chance. I'm sorry for talking so much. I'm just so excited to see you again." Geese and beavers and deer and fish and squirrels and owls and bears and turtles and otters and raccoons and woodpeckers and possum and moose and fox and every kind of creature from every corner of the island were coming to welcome back their dear friends, Roz and Brightbill. And watching it all from the airship was Dr. Malavo. Chapter 88, The Final Farewell. "Everyone, I would like you to meet the woman who designed me." Roz walked over to the strange creature standing by the airship's doorway. For most of the island animals, this was their first time seeing a human. They squinted and sniffed and whispered to each other, trying to understand how such a frail old woman could create such a big, strong robot. Dr. Malavo started speaking softly to Roz, and then Roz started speaking loudly to the crowd of animals. "My designer has asked me to translate her words for you. The following words are not mine. They are hers." The crowd settled down and listened. "Thank you, island animals, for saving Roz. Without your help, she would have died here long ago. But you were not only her rescuers, you were also her teachers. You taught her to be wild, and she needed all of her wildness to survive, both in your world and in mine. As I look around at this wild paradise, I finally understand why Roz tried so hard to get back here. She does not belong with robots and humans. She belongs here on this island with you. We cannot risk others learning about this place. That is why I will soon leave and never return. But I promise to keep your island a secret so that all of you can live in peace. And I will spend the rest of my days filled with wonder at the miracle that this is our wild robot. The meadow fell silent. A flurry of wing beats and Brightbill landed in the grass near Dr. Malavo. He gazed up at the woman deep into her eyes, and then he bowed his head. Then the other geese in his flock bowed their heads. Crown Point, the buck, bowed his head. Pinktail the possum bowed. Mr. and Mrs. Beaver bowed. The lizards bowed, followed by the turtles and the frogs. Like a wave rolling through the crowd, more animals bowed until every head was lowered. They were showing respect for the woman who had created their dear friend Roz and who had brought her back to them. Dr. Malavo turned to Roz. Do you understand why I can't return? She said, her eyes glistening. It's for your own good. I understand. I only wish we had gotten to know each other a little better. Dr. Malavo smiled and pulled Roz into a hug. She didn't mind the robot's coat of mud and grass wrapped in each other's arms. They both felt something like love. You're the wild robot, said the woman. Go be wild.